Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we'll dive into an emotional story about Tuna and Alex, a journey filled with fragile love, quiet promises, and the challenges of building a future together. From the simple gift of flowers to the discovery of new life, their story reminds us that love is often found in the smallest, most tender moments. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss the next chapters in this heartfelt journey. The morning opened like a sheet of pale silk, light spilling faintly through the window. Tuna sat quietly in front of her camera, her voice soft, like the rustle of leaves in the early dawn. She smiled gently into the lens, wishing her invisible audience peace and safety, as though she wanted to hand them a fragment of her own fragile hope. Her words carried gratitude, simple but steady. She thanked those who stayed, watched, and silently encouraged her. Then, almost like a confession, she admitted her journey was still long, that she felt unprepared, that she couldn't create as often as she wished. Behind her eyes flickered weariness, shadows of sleepless nights that she tried to cover with tenderness. The room carried a faint scent of milk, laundry drying nearby, and a child's soft breath lingering in the air. She spoke of her son, her anchor, her responsibility. Her voice trembled slightly as she admitted her limits, asking for patience and understanding. "When my child grows a little," she whispered, "I'll try to be here more often." Her promise lingered like mist, uncertain, yet sincere. There was no applause, no crowd, only the steady hum of life and the faint clicking of her camera, capturing every syllable. But even in that silence, her words bloomed, fragile wildflowers pushing through cracks of stone, alive, though unnoticed. It was the beginning of her story, not grand, but honest. And beneath it all, there was an unspoken longing to be seen, to be loved, to belong. As the morning deepened, Tuna's world shifted from quiet words to hurried steps. Her child lay sleeping, his small chest rising and falling with dreams too delicate to disturb. She watched him, her heart caught between love and worry. The kitchen carried the scent of rice husks and ripening fruit. Outside, cicadas began their chorus, a reminder that time was slipping by. She thought of Mrs. Tang, the elderly neighbor with aching legs. Was she well enough today? Could she still watch over the baby? Tuna hesitated, then resolved to take her child there. Only then could she steal a few hours to harvest dragon fruit, sell them at the market, and earn just enough for the day. The thought pressed on her like the weight of summer heat, relentless, heavy, familiar. With careful hands, she gathered the baby's things: tiny clothes, a bottle of milk, a freshly washed cloth. Each item felt like a fragment of her life entrusted to another's care. She whispered softly to her son, promising to return soon, even as doubt gnawed at her. Was she doing enough? Was she enough? At Mrs. Tang's house, she gently placed the baby in the elder's arms. The neighbor's voice was soothing, experienced hands rocking him with ease. Still, Tuna lingered, reluctant to leave. Then with a deep breath, she turned away, her steps heavy with the ache of separation. Behind her, the child's faint murmur mingled with the wind, a reminder of the delicate balance she walked every single day. Meanwhile, the morning sun poured across the city, painting windows in golden light. Alex stood by his desk, the weight of two worlds pressing on him. In one vision, he saw a bouquet of flowers, a velvet box holding a ring, and a silver necklace that shimmered like a promise. In the other, his phone buzzed nonstop. Calls about shipments, schedules, contracts, the endless pulse of business. Miss Land's voice was the first, calm but urgent, reminding him of consignments waiting for inspection. Then came Adam's firm tone, calculating and exact, evaluating quality and trust. Alex responded with practiced authority, but beneath the surface, his heart beat in another rhythm, one that whispered only Tuna's name. The road to the gardens narrowed, lined with trees whose leaves shimmered like restless thoughts. Workers bent over crates of custard apples, their fruit glistening with morning dew. Fragile, easily bruised, just like the love Alex carried. He inspected the shipment, nodded at Adam's assessments, but his mind drifted elsewhere, to the small farm where Tuna lived, unaware of the storm of nerves building in him. By afternoon, the deal was done. Adam left satisfied. Miss Land handled the rest. But Alex felt no triumph. Instead, he returned home, retrieving the bouquet, the ring, the necklace, tokens not of wealth, but of hope. Standing before the mirror, he saw not a polished CEO, but a man trembling at the edge of confession, caught between the demands of commerce and the deeper duty of his heart. Evening light stretched long across the floor, casting shadows like unanswered questions. Alex paced slowly, flowers trembling in his grip, the velvet box heavier than any contract. In the reflection, he no longer saw the man who signed deals, but someone vulnerable, a boy about to bare his soul. He thought of Tuna's fragile smile, her silence that spoke louder than words. He thought of her child, whose tiny heartbeat was woven into her every breath. Could he step into that world, not as an outsider, but as a pillar she could lean on? The thought both terrified and steadied him. On the table, the necklace glinted faintly, like starlight caught in silver. He closed his fist around the ring, his pulse racing. Every beat seemed to ask the same question. Will she accept me? Outside, cicadas hummed restlessly. Inside, silence grew heavy until courage was the only escape. Alex dressed carefully, though his hands trembled. Time felt cruel, each second both a gift and a burden. He whispered into the quiet like a prayer. Let her see me. Let her believe in me. Then he stepped into the dusk, carrying not just flowers and jewels, but the fragile weight of his soul laid bare. The farm was quiet, broken only by the faint crackle of firewood and the hiss of boiling water. Tuna moved softly through the small kitchen, her hands busy, her mind elsewhere. The baby slept soundly in the next room, leaving the house wrapped in calm. Then came the knock, hesitant yet certain. She opened the door. There stood Alex, flowers trembling in his hands, his eyes heavy with words unsaid. He entered like a storm disguised as stillness. She asked why he had brought flowers, her voice half curious, half guarded. He faltered, then confessed. The words came slow, halting. He had carried her in his heart longer than he dared admit. He wanted to care for her child, to be more than just a visitor at the edge of her life. The ring glimmered between them, a fragile circle of promise. Tuna's breath caught. She looked at him, then at the flowers, then down at her trembling hands. I don't know if I'm worthy, she whispered. Her eyes shimmered with fear, not of him, but of herself, of stepping into a happiness she worried she couldn't hold. The silence stretched, heavy yet tender. Alex did not press. He only promised to wait. He placed the necklace gently in her hands, asking her to keep it, not as an answer, but as a reminder of hope. In the flicker of lamplight, their eyes met, his steady, hers uncertain. And in that fragile quiet, a seed of something unshakable was planted. Night fell gently over the farm, the sky deepening into a velvet canvas scattered with faint stars. Inside, the small house glowed with the warm light of a single lamp, its radiance painting both comfort and shadow across the wooden walls. Alex remained seated at the table, the bouquet resting quietly near him, their fragrance mingling with the simple aroma of cooked rice. Tuna moved about softly, her presence near yet distant, as though she were balancing on a fragile line between acceptance and retreat. The ring still sat inside its velvet box, unopened, yet the promise it carried lingered unspoken in the air. Alex reached across the table, his voice low but firm, telling her, "I will wait, no matter how long it takes. I will wait." His words were not demands, but a steady assurance that fell gently into the silence, like rain touching dry soil. Tuna looked at him, her eyes dim with hesitation, but something inside her softened. She accepted the flowers, and when he asked, she allowed him to clasp the necklace around her neck. In that gesture, there was no triumph, only quiet acknowledgement. She had not said yes, but she had not turned him away either. It was an engagement not marked by ceremony, but by presence. Two lives tethered by a fragile agreement to move forward, even if the steps were slow and uncertain. In the next room, the baby stirred in his sleep, a faint murmur weaving itself into the silence. Alex rose and crossed the room, his hands unexpectedly tender as he adjusted the child's blanket. He moved with the care of someone proving through action what words could not fully capture. Tuna watched, her heart unsettled yet warmed. They were not yet a family, not yet bound by vows, but in the hush of that evening, an invisible line had been crossed. The future no longer belonged to one person alone, but to two. Days turned quietly into weeks, and the air grew heavy with unspoken changes. Tuna often felt her body betraying her, waves of nausea arriving without warning, dizziness that caught her off guard, exhaustion that clung to her even during moments of rest. At first, she brushed it aside, blaming the endless labor of farm work and sleepless nights. But the signs became undeniable. One morning, with trembling resolve, she walked slowly to the clinic. Each step weighted with the fear of an answer she wasn't ready to face. The doctor's voice was gentle, but the truth landed like thunder over a quiet field. She was carrying a child, Alex's child. The world tilted as she pressed her hands against her abdomen, as though cradling both fear and miracle. The past she had fought to survive, the present she was learning to endure, and now the future, suddenly written inside her, pressed upon her heart with terrifying clarity. When she told Alex, his eyes widened, then softened. He did not speak right away. Instead, he reached for her hands, studying them carefully, then studying her face, as if memorizing every detail of the moment. "This is our child," he whispered, not as a claim, but as a vow. His words carried the weight of an anchor in the storm of a promise, binding him to her fate in a way that could not be undone. Tuna turned her face away, tears trembling on the edges of her lashes. Happiness, fear, and doubt swirled together inside her like storm clouds before rain. She knew the path ahead would not grow easier. If anything, it would demand more than she believed she had. Yet in the quiet of that moment, beneath his steady hand and the life now growing inside her, she realized one thing with sudden clarity. She was no longer alone. As the days passed, she and Alex found themselves navigating a new rhythm. He visited often, sometimes bringing groceries, sometimes carrying only his silent determination. He learned the creak of the wooden gate, the hiss of the kettle on her stove, the subtle ways she shielded her fatigue from him. And she, despite her hesitation, began to see him less as a visitor at her doorstep and more as a constant presence, someone who did not walk away when life grew heavy. One evening, as the sky shifted into shades of amber and violet, Alex arrived with no gifts, no flowers, only the quiet steadiness of his company. They sat together on the porch, the baby asleep inside, the air filled with the chorus of cicadas. For a long while, neither spoke. Then, breaking the silence, Alex said, "I don't just want to be here for you when things are easy. I want to be here when it's hard, especially then." His words lingered in the thick summer air, not dramatic, not rehearsed, just honest. Tuna looked at him, her lips parting as though to answer, but no sound came. Still, something inside her shifted, like a door opening slightly to let light in. But alongside the soft glow of hope came the harsh realities that tested them both. Business continued to pull Alex into long hours and heavy responsibilities. There were nights when he could not come, days when his phone seemed to tether him more tightly to the world outside than to the life quietly forming within the farm's wooden walls. Tuna, with her growing fatigue, felt the weight of those absences. Doubt crept in. Could he truly balance the empire he had built with the fragile home she offered him? Could love survive the constant tug-of-war between contracts and commitments, between public duty and private longing? The answer was never clear, yet in the smallest of moments, they found reassurance. A shared meal eaten in silence, his hand brushing against hers while carrying water from the well, her laughter breaking unexpectedly when he tried to soothe the crying baby. These moments stitched themselves into the fabric of their days, weaving strength out of tenderness, building a life that was imperfect, yet real. And so, their story lingered at the edge of promise and uncertainty. Tuna carried within her both the miracle of new life and the fear of what that life demanded. Alex carried the weight of a world that constantly tested his devotion. Yet he returned again and again, drawn not by duty alone, but by a love he could no longer deny. This journey was never about grand gestures, but about the quiet moments that shifted everything. The whispered confessions, the trembling proposals, the fragile acceptance of flowers, and the promise of patience. From Tuna's struggles to Alex's vow, from hesitation to the delicate bond of an engagement, and finally to the discovery of a new life growing silently between them. Their path had only just begun. And that is the end of today's story. From Tuna's quiet battles to Alex's trembling hope, from doubt to the fragile promise of a future together, we are reminded that love is not measured by certainty, but by the courage to remain when the road grows heavy. Will Tuna fully accept the weight of love and the new life inside her? Can Alex truly balance the empire of business with the fragile world of family? Or will time test their promises in ways they cannot yet imagine? Only the days ahead will reveal the answers. But one truth remains. Even in silence, even in hesitation, love continues to grow in the smallest of moments. Tuna and Alex's story begins with a quiet but powerful moment, the simple gift of a flower that carries deep meaning. For Tuna, it is not just a token of affection, but a symbol of Alex's care and sincerity. Their relationship blossoms as they share laughter, gentle promises, and dreams of a shared future. However, life soon tests their bond. As Tuna discovers she is pregnant, the joy of new beginnings is accompanied by uncertainty, fear, and the heavy responsibility of creating a stable life for their child. Through challenges and tender moments alike, Alex remains by her side, offering comfort and unwavering support. Their journey is one of love, resilience, and hope, reminding us that even in hardship, the strength of two hearts can build a brighter tomorrow.